What's up, everybody? This is A7X Van Ben, and welcome to another fleet making video. In this one, we're going to build Event Horizon 2. So the first one was made by Darren back at Miniature Trading, and I'm just going to make kind of an alternate idea here. So there's also going to be a video about Event Horizon if you want to check out that, going over Darren's original fleet. So we're going to try for 40 points. I think this would work better at a higher total, but I want to at least make a version that's workable for standard. And that also, another benefit to doing that is that sometimes you can get the basis of a fleet that works at 40. It's usually easier from then to go up in build total rather than go down. Because if you make a fleet that works at 80, it's harder to like cut stuff out. It's really annoying. It's annoying to make cuts and be like, oh, I gotta sacrifice this, and then this combo doesn't work as well. So I want to get like a bare bones workable version at 40, and then if I wanted to play it in a bigger game, it'd be a lot easier to just add stuff on to improve it after that. So Event Horizon 2, and we're just going to start there. I don't know the entire version of the fleet, but I have the basics written down here. So the premise is to farm Mysterious Island number 14. By farming, I mean when you redock a Mysterious Island to intentionally trigger one or more of the effects over and over again. So native canoes are one of the best ways to do that because it's basically 5 ships and they start, well, per set, and then they start the game at a wild island of your choice. So you could potentially, unless an opponent places their canoes at the only MI that we want, and then you can't place them there. Other than that situation, you can basically start farming right on the first turn. So what we want to farm here is Mysterious Island number 14, which on a 5 or 6 says you can add an event from your collection to your fleet. So we know events are quite overpowered, and this fleet is going to utilize this where it's not going to have any events in the starting fleet, but then as soon as you start redocking, you're essentially going to be able to add to your build total, because ideally you can do this on the first round, and then you can start bringing in all sorts of events. There's no cap on the number. The only cap would be they are still subject to the no duplicates rule in terms of bringing them in. So unless you've used them already, then you can't bring in multiple copies. Like you couldn't bring in 5 hidden coves, but you could bring in 1 and then use it, I guess, at the beginning of your next turn, and then redock, farm the island, get another hidden cove, use that on the following turn. And it's also important to know that you can only use 1 beginning of turn event per turn. So you can't play you can't play Becalmed and Hidden Cove at the same time, I don't think, because they're beginning of turn effects. So reveal this event at the beginning of one of your turns. So only 1 per turn for those. But the nice thing about this is with farming via native canoes, the negative effect you completely bypass. So it says roll a 5d6 on a 1 or 2. For every 4 to 6 result, eliminate one of the ship's masts. But native canoes don't have masts, so they're completely immune to the negative. So it's all upside. So we're going to start with the rattlesnake because she's one of the easiest ways to get native canoes in a fleet. And we're going to use the American version just because they're the best canoes, basically. And because I think it's the cheapest way, or at least one of the cheapest ways to get multiple sets of native canoes in a 40-point fleet. There might be other ways with multi-faction ships and maybe Lowest Justice, but the nice thing is the Americans, unlike the Spanish and the Cursed, who also have native canoes, the Americans have a point reducer in Savage Shore's Captain Charles Richard. So we're going to add him. So he basically will allow us to break the point limit of the ship. So he does have the captain ability too, but what we're mainly after is crew placed on the ship, cost no points, but still take up cargo spaces. And they always take up cargo spaces, actually. So he does not allow you to exceed the build total of the game, but he will allow us to fit more canoes into the fleet, because we're not going for just 1 set of canoes. That could work, but we're going to bring in a second set at some point here. So that's the basis of it. And there's also going to be a tribal chieftain aboard. So I don't think they're in PSM list yet, but that's fine. So that really brings us to 18, but we'll see that here once we add our first set of American native canoes. So the chieftain is on the rattlesnake. Captain Charles Richard is what allows him to use his abilities. and then he'll bring in the canoes. And we're going to have Perry on the Rattlesnake as well for our zero limit ransom +5 crew. That'll allow us to get to 45 total, as long as 5 of those are in addition to the original 40. So, and that might be an interesting thing to figure out, actually. I don't think it'll be a huge problem, but all right. So to get a second set, we'll need probably a 10-point or more American ship. So I'm going to go to Teeler Fire's database and just start with that. So, because we're going to need another chieftain. You can unload a chieftain if it's the same. I don't know if it has to be the same nationality, but you only need one to have this work, basically. But you need both to start the game. So after placing your ships at your home island, assigning crew, choose a wild island, place 5 native canoes of the chieftain's nationality so their bows touch that island. So this one, let's see, only at the beginning of the game, during setup. Yeah, priority for placing canoes based on player turn order. Player 1 place all of his or her canoes, then player 2, etc. And so they're considered generic crews, so they may be duplicated within a fleet. If multiple are on a fleet, or in your fleet, all tribal chieftains must be placed on separate ships to gain their canoes. The no stacking rule applies. So that's why we have to add a second chieftain here, and therefore an American ship that's at least 10 points. Because the Americans, they don't have 2, point reducers. They only have the one, Captain Charles Richard. They don't have a 0-point version of that ability without Captain. So, and then only one tribal chieftain is required to control all canoes of its nationality. Other chieftains of the same nationality may be unloaded without penalty. So that's probably what we're going to do. And we're going to keep that in mind here. Basically, the second American ship just needs to hold a chieftain to start the game. But then as soon as the game starts, as soon as it's our turn, we're probably going to use the free transfer rules to unload the chieftain at home. Because the Rattlesnake, with Perry and Charles Richard aboard, she's probably going to stay at home anyway. I think she's going to be kind of like a home island camper ship just to protect those valuable crew. She might head out for gold, but she's just as likely to stay at home. So, especially with 3 cargo spaces already taken up. So, second American ship at least around 10 points, maybe more. And then, yeah, there'd be around 7 points left, because then the chieftain plus the American ship would be plus 20. So we'd be at 38, theoretically. So, like I said, let's use Teeler Fire's database. I'm going to start here, and I think I'm going to look at 10-point ships to start out, and then we can increase if we want more options. I think this will be good enough, though. I already see some ships I like a lot. USS James Madison is a good one. We should probably get something that can fight. I think I do want a little bit of combat capability. So I think that's going to affect our choice dramatically, actually. We might go up to 12 points. So the way I'm thinking about this is we have 27 points. We know at least 10 will be for the chieftain, and at least 10 will be for the ship, because the ship has to be at least 10 points for the chieftain to use its abilities at the start of the game. And that leaves us with 7 points left over. I think 5 are going to be for a captain and helmsman, because this fleet right now, even with another set of native canoes, it won't really have any true combat capability. We want more of a gunship with a captain and probably a helmsman here. So the captain and helmsman will also be perfect, because Perry can bring in those crew with the +5, and that'll work pretty well. So in that case, we might do a 12-point ship. And the way I'm thinking about this is that the captain and helmsman are going to start the game on the home island, because the ship won't have point cap space for both. She might have, if we do a 12-point ship, she'd have point cap space for the helmsman, but not for both captain and helmsman. So once it's your turn, you would unload the chieftain, load up the captain and helmsman, and then go hunting or whatever. So we're going to increase our point range on American ships from 10 to 12. So in that range, we see Providence is a really good one. Boston is still pretty good. Concord, okay, that one's not too bad. I have a feeling Providence will be our best option, but I'll probably go with Hudson because I love that ship. Delaware, yeah, Minuteman's a decent option. USS Hudson is really cool. Just got crew elimination, good speed, good cost, solid firepower. So pretty cool American schooner. USS James Madison would be a good option, especially for gold running. But like I said, we want a little bit more of a fighter right here, I think, just to balance the fleet out a little bit. New Orleans, love the ship, but not the most firepower for having this as the main gunship in the fleet. And then Overton is a ship I like a lot, but I think I want to keep the fleet fast here. Overton could work, but I think I'm going to stick with speed. Mohican is a good one as well. Adventurous, they got a lot of pretty good ships in this point range. So you could go with the 2-segment sub. Paladin is pretty good. I guess it's Bellevue, maybe a tiny bit underrated, not really, but Cleveland, Sioux, yeah, these are great. There's a lot of good options here, really. Can't go wrong with a lot of these. Saratoga has a high, potential max speed of SLS. Mercury, the Windcatcher one from Rise of the Fiends, Pawtucket, Lennox. They got a lot of good options. But I think I've actually been wanting to use Hudson in the game too. I don't know if I'll use this fleet in the future, hopefully at some point. But if I do, USS Hudson is a ship I like using. So we're going to add that, and then we're going to add the canoes here. So like I said, the Chieftain, so now that gets us to 40. So that's our original 40 points. So this is the base 40 points this fleet is based on or built on. And so the Hudson will start the game with the Chieftain aboard, and then via the +5, we're going to add Captain and Helmsman. So this will allow Hudson to move and shoot, of course, and boost her max speed to SLS. So I guess she might as well start the game with the Helmsman and the Chieftain aboard, and then she'll just grab the Captain in exchange for the Chieftain once the game starts. And there you have it. That's pretty much it. So we're maxed out on points, and yeah, I think it looks pretty good. And the nice thing is, even if the canoes aren't farming, or you get all the events you want, and you still need to actually get gold, of course, the canoes, we've got 20 cargo spaces between the two sets of canoes. Some are probably going to be eliminated, especially if you go second and the enemy can hit the wild island they're at on the first round. That's kind of an ugly situation, but it certainly might happen. So they might get crushed pretty hard. But in a 40-point game, it will at least somewhat limit the threats that you'll face. The probably worst case scenario is if the opponent has like a Zeus with World Hater, and then they hidden cove it to that same wild island, because there's a chance you'd lose all the canoes. But that's not going to be every fleet you face. So overall, it's really based on the gimmick of bringing in events from outside the game. But I think this fleet could do reasonably well, even if it's hard to, even if you get bad rolls and the events don't really pan out. One thing to keep in mind as a limitation is that the events don't really, a lot of them won't work right away because of that beginning of turn thing. So when it's your turn, you'll redock and then try to trigger the Mysterious Island effect to bring in events. But then if you bring in something like Hidden Cove, that can't be used until your next turn because the beginning of your turn has already passed by the time you start giving actions. So that's something to just keep in mind, basically. So, but you could bring in False Treasure. You could bring in a ton of events, Cursed Zone. You could very quickly increase not your build total, but your total points that your fleet has. So divers, mermaids, that's 4. Foul Winds, 7. Becalmed, 11 total now. Hidden Cove, Favor of the Gods gets us to 15. False Treasure is 10, so that gets us 25. Rolling Fog, 26. Curse Zone, 29. Duel, oh, I forgot about Duel completely. Duel could be good too because you've got 2 10-point crew. So, and then if the Chieftain loses the duel, you should have another one on your home island that Rattlesnake can pick up. So you almost have an expendable Chieftain to some extent. Just keep in mind, crew is removed from the game. So we'll take a look at that if I remember in a second. But I think duel was 5, so that gets us to like 34 maybe. I don't know. Either way, there's somewhere around 30, 34 points worth of events that you can bring in from outside the game. So if you get good rolls, you could dramatically increase the total points available in your fleet right in the first round. And then these events could just absolutely wreak havoc. So yeah, Chieftain. It says if this crew is eliminated. So eliminated is different from removed from the game. So if you use the Chieftain with duel, even if it's removed from the game, you don't have to roll this d6. And then yeah, so even if it's eliminated, you could pick up the other one from your home island, assign it to the rattlesnake. And then as long as you do that before you would give any canoes actions, you'd be good to go. So duel could actually be a pretty good option among the others. And this fleet doesn't have any explorers, so it might be a little bit slow to get gold, but that's where false treasure and mermaids could come in handy, really slowing down the enemy. So I think it has the potential to be good. I think it's important to include 3 of Mysterious Island number 4 in your island distribution. And the reason for that is because there's a chance that 2 out of those 3 will be picked as a home island. So if you have some control over that theoretically. You could always make sure to not pick one of these as an opponent home island, but there's at least a chance that it will be optimal to do so. And then the other nice thing about that is it leaves only 1 of these as a wild island. And then that means it might be harder for your opponent to abuse this same ability and farm it for their own events. So overall, I would try to include 3 of those just to make sure at least one of them is wild to start the game. And that's where you'll put your canoes and then start farming for Event Horizon 2. So feel free to check out the fleet on PSM list. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Thanks again for watching. Feel free to support the channel with the affiliate links buying from eBay that you can find in the description as well. But beyond that, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more Pirates videos.